Have you ever looked back at your life and felt like it's stuck in a loop that never ends? You wake up late. You rush. You try to chase the whole world, but by the end of the day, you still feel like you didn't get anywhere. Tomorrow goes by exactly like today. Then one night, lying there in the dark, you ask yourself, why am I still standing in the exact same place after all these years? A lot of people think they're missing luck, missing talent, missing opportunities, but sometimes the only thing they're missing is one quiet hour. 1 hour no one can interrupt. 1 hour that could turn their whole life in a new direction. The story you're about to hear isn't about a genius or someone successful. It's about Ethan, a poor, exhausted man who's been letting life decide everything for him. Until one day he woke up before sunrise, and 4 a.m. became the turning point that changed everything. Ethan never thought his life would ever feel this suffocating, and he lived in a run-down apartment building where the hallways were always dim and the stairs creaked every time someone walked by. His low-paying manual job left him exhausted almost every day. He didn't hate the work, but it drained every bit of energy he had. Every night he came home with a worn-out body. He'd grab something cheap to eat. Then he'd drop into an old chair, pick up his phone, and scroll without thinking until his eyes grew heavy. Not because he enjoyed it, but because he didn't have the energy to do anything else. By the time he noticed, it was already close to midnight, and the next morning his alarm went off. But Ethan didn't get up. He turned it off, then turned it off again. Eventually, he jolted awake in panic, at least an hour late. His day started rushed, chaotic, and soaked in guilt. But worse than that, his day didn't have any purpose. Every day felt like a tired copy of the one before. Ethan didn't hate being poor, yet he hated not knowing what he was living for. He hated the feeling of drifting through life like a fading leaf, with no control over where he was going. Then everything fell apart. A rare chance showed up. A better job, higher pay, more stability. Ethan had been waiting for that moment for years, but on the one day that mattered, he overslept. He ran to the interview as fast as he could, shirt soaked in sweat, mind scrambled. The recruiter took one look at him. You and Ethan knew the outcome before the interview even started. When he walked out of the building, his face burned with embarrassment. But the pain that hit hardest was the truth pressing down on him. It's not that I'm not good enough. I just have zero control over my life. He walked slowly back to his old rental building, his heart heavy. The worn-out stairs felt like they were reminding him again that he was living a life much smaller than the one he once dreamed of. Ethan sat down there, his back against the cold wall. He didn't cry, but his mind felt like a locked room with no light getting in. Then he heard soft footsteps. Mr. Harris, an older man Ethan often saw around the building, stopped when he noticed him. He lived alone, spoke little, but everyone could feel the calm that surrounded him. A calm Ethan had never known. You look like someone who's letting life drive for you, he said, his voice low but not judgmental. Ethan looked up. For some reason, and that single sentence hit the deepest part of him. He let out a long breath, and for the first time in a long while, he admitted things he'd never said out loud. The exhaustion, the aimlessness, the shame of the opportunity he'd just lost. Mr. Harris sat down beside him. He didn't interrupt. He didn't lecture. He just listened. And when Ethan finally finished, Mr. Harris nodded gently, like Ethan had just told a story he himself had lived through. All my life, I used to live just like you," he began. "Busy from morning to night but going nowhere. I used to think I didn't have a choice until I started doing one simple thing. I woke up at 4 a.m. Ethan widened his eyes. "For what?" "To give the first hour of the day to myself," Mr. Harris said. "To think while the world is still asleep. To reset my direction. To be the one steering my day instead of chasing after it." Ethan stayed quiet, though most of him didn't believe waking up early could change anything. But something in Mr. Harris's voice wouldn't let him dismiss it. There was certainty. There was peace. A peace Ethan wished he had. Before leaving, Mr. Harris placed a hand on his shoulder and said the one line Ethan would never forget. "How you start your morning decides how you live the rest of your day." Ethan sat there long after Mr. Harris walked away. That sentence felt like a seed, small, but strong enough to pierce through the darkness that had covered his mind for years. And when night came in that cramped little room, Ethan made a decision that even he didn't expect. He was going to try. Not because he believed in it, but because he had nothing left to lose. Tomorrow he would wake up at 4 a.m. The first morning Ethan got up at 4 a.m. was a shock. The alarm rang through the quiet room and he immediately regretted his decision. His body felt heavy as stone, and his eyes stung. His breath was slow and thick. He sat up, then fell right back down as if the bed was holding him in place. And then his mind started talking. "Go back to sleep. You deserve the rest." The voice was soft but powerful. It felt like a hand pulling him back into the familiar darkness. Ethan forced himself out of bed. He finally managed to stand, but his whole body pushed back. He had no energy and no idea why he chose to do this. Outside, the sky was still pitch black, and with only the sound of wind slipping through the cracks. He felt like an idiot, the only person awake at an hour when the whole world was asleep. One thought filled his head: just give up. And the scary part was that he almost did. The first days the body fights back, the mind rebels. The first 3 days felt like a battle he kept losing. His body wasn't used to it. His mind resisted. Every morning was a test of willpower that made Ethan feel small. He even started doubting what Mr. Harris had told him. He didn't feel any improvement. He felt more tired than before. And he felt like he was trying to change something far too big with something far too small. On the 4th day, Ethan stood by the door, leaning against the wall, letting out a long sigh. He thought about stopping, thought about going back to his old life, a familiar life that still kept him stuck. That's when Mr. Harris showed up again. He looked at Ethan as if he had expected this moment. No blame, no surprise. "Tough, isn't it?" he asked. Ethan nodded. Mr. Harris gave a small smile. "Waking up early won't change your life. How you use that time will change your life." That line made Ethan stand up straighter, and then he handed Ethan the most important thing, a real framework to follow. Mr. Harris's 3-step framework. He explained it clearly, step by step, like he'd used it his whole life. Step 1, 15 minutes to wake up your body and your will light movement to get your blood flowing. Drink a glass of water, write a few short notes to bring your mind back online. He said, you have to wake up your body before you wake up your future. Step 2, 30 minutes to learn something that opens new opportunities. No scrolling your phone, no news. Just learn something with long-term value, a skill knowledge, a field you want to pursue. Build your future before the chaos of the day begins. Step 3. 15 minutes to set your goal for the day. Pick one important task, not 3, not 5. Just one. Make a simple plan for the afternoon. If you don't choose what matters, life will choose for you, and it never chooses well. Then he ended with the line Ethan would remember forever. You don't need to change your whole life. You just need to change the first hour of your day. For the first time, Ethan felt like he had a clear path to step into. Not inspiration, not motivation, a system. Week 2 and 3. A door opens from the inside. The change didn't come all at once, but it came clearly enough for Ethan to feel it. Mornings weren't as heavy as before. His body started to cooperate. His mind stopped screaming in protest like it did in the beginning. The quiet at 4 a.m. was different. No cars, no notifications, no demands. Just Ethan sitting there with a silence he'd never had in his entire life. In that silence, he could think about things he never had space for during the day. Big questions, new directions, things he wanted to do but had never dared to start. Learning in the early morning gave him a sense of progress. Small, but real. And he started to feel like he was getting ahead of life instead of chasing after it. One morning, as he closed his notebook, Ethan realized the first thing the 4 a.m. journey had taught him. Silence creates awareness that noise never can. The turning point, the first results appear. After a month, everything started to become clear. The skills he learned in the morning became useful at work. He was more focused, calmer, and didn't react impulsively the way he used to. The mistakes he used to make began to fade. People started to notice he was different, not on the outside, but in his energy. He no longer felt like the world was pushing him around. He was walking on his own. And then an opportunity came along. Not big, not flashy, but unmistakably a new door. Ethan knew that if he were the same person he was 3 months ago, he would have missed it. Not because he didn't deserve it, but because he wouldn't have seen it. Now it was different. He finally had the ability to see and grab opportunities. One afternoon, Ethan went to find Mr. Harris. He told him about the changes in the things he'd done, and he asked, "Why can just 1 hour every morning change so much?" Mr. Harris looked at him, his eyes gentle but sharp. 1. Morning is when your willpower is strongest. 2. When you give the first hour to yourself, you change the rhythm of your life. 3. Opportunities come to people who are prepared, not people who are hoping. 4. Morning discipline creates a new identity, and identity decides the future. Ethan listened, and everything clicked, and not just in his mind, but in his life. As time passed, Ethan realized he was no longer the person he used to be. Waking up at 4 a.m. had become natural. No more battles, no more dragging his tired body out of bed. He was more alert, and that feeling carried into the rest of the day. He started his mornings with intention instead of panic. He knew what he needed to do, and more importantly, why he needed to do it. Work was no longer a list of tasks pulling him down, and it became a place where he applied what he learned each morning. Slowly, Ethan discovered something he never thought was possible. He could focus. He could prioritize. He could choose what truly mattered and ignore what scattered his attention. The sense of control returned, little by little but unmistakably. And then one afternoon, as he stepped out of work, Ethan stopped in the middle of the street. In the late-day sunlight, he suddenly realized something strange. He believed in himself for the first time in years. Not that he would succeed overnight, but that he could change, that he was good enough to build a new life, one step at a time. That was the moment that marked the deepest transformation. Ethan was no longer the guy who slept in, the guy who was always exhausted, or the guy who never had time for what mattered. Those things slowly fell off him like layers of old dust finally being brushed away. Yet in their place, he became someone who lived with intention, someone who planned his day instead of being pushed around by it, someone who started his future before the world even woke up. He didn't notice this in week 2 or week 3, not clearly. But one morning when he looked in the mirror, he saw himself standing a little straighter, his eyes calmer, and a small, very small smile appeared. It wasn't a proud smile. It was the smile of someone who'd finally found himself again. Ethan didn't change because of some magic tied to 4 a.m. He changed because he chose to put his future first. And here are the lessons his journey reminds us of. 1. Early mornings don't hold any magic, but they give you a slice of time the world can't interrupt. In that quiet, you get to choose who you want to become. 2. Morning discipline creates momentum for the entire day. When you win the first battle of the day, you walk into the rest with a different mindset. 3. One quiet hour is more powerful than 10 chaotic ones. You don't need more time. You need better time. 4. When you change the first hour of your day, you change the trajectory of your life. A new path begins with very small steps, but the ones who keep stepping go far. That's what Ethan learned, and it's the same lesson for anyone feeling stuck. You don't need to wake up at 4 a.m. You just need to give yourself 1 hour. No notifications, no noise, no phone, no interruptions. It's 1 hour to learn, 1 hour to think, 1 hour to steer your life back into place. Try it for 7 days, just 7 days, and then you'll see what Ethan saw, that sometimes change doesn't come from a big leap. It comes from the moment you choose to start.